Whispers of the Doll. The rain had just stopped when Elena Carter and her 2 children arrived at their new home in the small town of Blackwood. The house stood at the edge of a forest, an old Victorian with towers and windows like watchful eyes. The neighbors called it the Marrow House, and nobody had lived there for nearly 50 years. Elena was a widow now, her husband killed in a car accident. She wanted a fresh start for her daughter Lila and her younger son Noah. She thought moving far away from the memories would help. But from the moment they stepped inside, Lila felt it. Something dark lived in those walls. The air was damp and smelled faintly of rot. The wallpaper peeled like shedding skin. The wooden floor moaned under every step. Noah clung to his mother, whispering, "Mommy, this house doesn't like us." Elena forced a smile. "It's just old, sweetheart. It needs love." But love was the last thing the house hungered for. The doll. On the 3rd day, Lila found the doll. It was hidden in the attic, locked inside a wooden chest. The doll was porcelain, its once white dress faded to yellow, its blonde curls tangled with dust. One glass eye was cracked, the other shone too brightly, almost alive. Its painted smile seemed wrong. Lila picked it up. The instant her hands touched it, a cold shiver raced down her spine. She heard a faint sound, a child's giggle, echoing in the dark corners of the attic. She froze. "Hello?" No one answered. From that night on, the doll stayed in Lila's room. She tried to leave it in the attic, but somehow every morning it appeared back on her dresser, always facing her bed. Noah began having nightmares. He woke screaming that a little girl stood in his room, her eyes missing, her mouth stretched wide as if sewn into a smile. Elena dismissed it as stress from the move, but Lila knew better. She had started hearing whispers. At night, just as she drifted off to sleep, the doll would whisper in a child's voice, "Play with me, Lila. Don't leave me alone." The first night. At 2:47 a.m., Lila woke suddenly. She heard footsteps in the hallway, soft and quick, like bare feet running. She crept out of bed and peeked through the crack in her door. A figure stood at the end of the hallway, a little girl, pale as snow, hair hanging wet over her face. She wore the same faded lace dress as the doll. The girl slowly turned her head toward Lila, and her cracked porcelain face reflected the moonlight. The doll wasn't on Lila's dresser anymore. It was standing in the hall. The stories. The next day, Lila asked a neighbor about the house. The old woman's face drained of color when she mentioned the attic. "You found the doll, didn't you?" Lila nodded. The woman whispered, "That doll belonged to Clara Marrow, the youngest daughter of the family who built that house. She died. Horribly. They say her soul never left. Children who see her don't live long." Lila's throat tightened. "What happened to Clara?" The woman leaned closer, voice trembling. "She wasn't buried whole. They say parts of her are still in the walls of that house. She's always looking for playmates." The games begin that night. The whispering grew louder. "Lila, come play. Let's be sisters forever." The doll moved on its own now. Elena refused to believe it, but Noah swore he saw it crawl across the floor. Sometimes, when the lights flickered, the doll's head would snap toward him with a sharp crack. One evening, Elena left the children home while she ran to the store. When she returned, Noah was hiding under the bed, sobbing, and Lila was standing in the corner of her room, her eyes glassy, clutching the doll. "She's my friend now," Lila said in a flat voice. "She told me her name is Clara. She says I can stay with her forever." The doll's cracked smile gleamed in the lamplight. Escalation. Strange things spread through the house. Tiny handprints appeared on fogged mirrors. Toys moved across the floor on their own. Whispers filled the air ducts, voices of children crying, begging, laughing. One night, Elena woke to the sound of humming. She followed it to the attic. There, in the dark, Lila sat in a circle of broken glass with the doll in her lap, humming a lullaby. Around them, faint shadows of children gathered. Thin, hollow-eyed figures with skeletal arms reaching toward Lila. Elena screamed, dragging her daughter away. But the doll fell, landing with a crack. For just a second, the house shook, and the shadows hissed like snakes. Then silence. But Lila whispered in her sleep that night, "She's angry now." The possession days turned into weeks. Lila grew pale, distant. She stopped eating. Her drawings filled with pictures of eyeless children and a girl in a broken dress. One evening, Elena found a note scrawled in Lila's handwriting. "I'm not Lila anymore. I'm Clara." That night, Elena heard her daughter's voice calling from downstairs. But when she checked, Lila was asleep in bed. The voice downstairs kept calling, softer, sweeter. When she entered the living room, the doll was sitting on the couch, alone. "Mommy?" the doll whispered. Elena stumbled back in horror. The doll's cracked lips had moved. The climax. The final horror came on the stormiest night of the year. The house shook under thunder. Lights flickered until the entire home was swallowed in darkness. Elena awoke to the sound of children screaming, hundreds of voices echoing through the walls. She ran to Lila's room. The bed was empty. In the attic, she found her daughter standing in the center, surrounded by dolls that hadn't been there before. Hundreds of porcelain faces, all cracked, all smiling. The real children's shadows circled them, chanting. Lila's eyes were no longer hers. They were glass, shining blue, just like the doll's. "Mommy," she said in two voices at once. "Clara wants me to stay." Forever, Elena grabbed the doll, smashing it against the floor. The porcelain cracked, but instead of breaking, blood poured out. A scream erupted, high-pitched, shaking the entire house. The doll's eyes all turned toward Elena, their jaws opened wide, teeth sharp as needles. Noah screamed from the doorway as the attic door slammed shut. The ending. When the neighbors finally came, the house was silent again. Inside, they found Noah alone, sitting in the hallway, clutching his knees. His eyes were wide, his hair turned white overnight. Elena and Lila were gone. In the attic, the old wooden chest was sealed again. Inside lay the doll, her cracks gone, her dress freshly white. And now, she had two glass eyes, one blue, one brown. Epilogue. Weeks later, the house went back on the market. The real estate agent laughed when asked about ghosts. "Just old stories," she said. But late at night, if you stand outside the Marrow house, you might hear it. A child's giggle, faint but clear, drifting from the attic window. And if you look closely, you'll see her. Lila's face, smiling behind the glass. Forever the doll,